UFC 277 betting and DraftKings show. We have 13 fights this Saturday, 2 title fights on the line. I'm Jon Kelly. Let's hear the picks. Kicking things off, we have Orion Klose as a -175 favorite. The comeback on Mike Mathetha, you may know him as Blood Diamond, is +145. And Klose is the older of 2 Klose brothers, but they fight very similarly in a sense because they both come from a wrestling background. All 7 of Klose's wins have come inside the distance. And obviously his UFC debut against Phil Rowe, he looked good early in that fight. Round 1 is typically his best round. He implemented his wrestling success, took Rowe down once or twice, held him down for a couple minutes in the first round. And then round 2, he looked pretty tired, ended up getting clipped on the feet, and then it was just game over from there. He started swinging wild hooks, just getting really sloppy. And that's kind of what I could see happening here, although I do expect him to have more grappling success against Blood Diamond, who basically doesn't really know what he's doing on the mat. We saw him against Jeremiah Wells in Blood Diamond's UFC debut, where he got taken down, controlled, and ultimately submitted at the end of the first round. So I just think there's going to be a big wrestling and grappling edge on the Klose side, but I cannot trust him at this number. I'm not interested in laying chalk on Klose, a guy that historically has gas tank issues. I don't think his striking is very good, but I'm still picking him to win the fight because I do expect him to close distance, grind on Blood Diamond, peel him to the ground, and take him down multiple times. Ultimately, I think he finds a finish over the course of 15 minutes. If not, maybe he can lay and pray his way to a decision. But either way, I think Klose gets the job done here and gets his hand raised. Next fight up in the light heavyweight division, we have Ihor Patira coming in as a small favorite at -130. The comeback on my guy Nikolai Negumereanu is +110. And I gotta say, and you guys may know me as the Nikolai Whisperer. When he fought against Alexa Kamor back in the day, I bet him big at +230 or something like that. It was over 200. I was very adamant, very vocal all week on not just the show that me and Jonah were doing that week, but I also did a guest spot on Lock of the Nights podcast. Shout out to him. That's my guy. But basically we did like a 4-person panel and we had a long dispute about this fight in particular, him versus Alexa Kamor. I was on him big there as a huge underdog, ended up cashing that bet. But ultimately what it came down to is at +200 or whatever, in the +200 range, I thought that he could make that fight very competitive against Alexa Kamor. And he did that. And credit to him. But he's also not a very good fighter. And so now when we're starting to see him as, a very, very small underdog or a pick'em, this might be a pick'em come Saturday, that's where I think maybe it's time to start pumping the brakes on all the Nikolai love, because it seems like now he's put together a 3-fight win streak, and a lot of people are like, well, he could just cage push. He could, land a takedown here or there, grind his way to, two of those 3 wins were by split decision. So it's not like he's winning on these big margins. Most people thought he lost the Kennedy Zichukwu fight. A lot of people called that a robbery. So it's not like he's blowing people away. The guy he gets hit a lot. Yes, he's very durable to this point, but he eats way too many clean shots to make you feel comfortable. I know he comes from a Romanian wrestling background, but it's pretty clear he's not really looking to take guys down here. He had 1 takedown against Kennedy Zichukwu. I think he had 1 against Alexa Kamor as well. He's not aggressively wrestling. So in this fight against Ihor Patira, who, yes, has a padded record, 19-2 prospect, but only 4 of those wins came against a fighter with a winning record. So the level of competition is certainly concerning, but we saw him on Contender Series last season. He ended up knocking out Lucas Soldowski on Contender Series, knocked him out in the first round. The guy does have clear power, and that's kind of what I keep going back to in this matchup is the dude has speed and he has power, and those are both going to be big advantages against Negumereanu, who doesn't really play much striking defense whatsoever. And yes, he can pump his jab out, throw some volume out there, but I expect Patira to have the kickboxing advantage here. So really, if you're backing Nikolai, you're hoping that he's going to be able to cage push. And yes, we've seen Patira controlled against the fence at times, but even against Soldowski, who's a very similar style matchup to Negumereanu, he was able to fight for underhooks and even reverse position against the cage multiple times in that fight. So I'm not really sure that there's much upside in backing Nikolai. And that's what I keep going back to. Whereas Whereas Patira, I think, is going to have a clear striking advantage. I think he's going to have more finishing ability in this fight as well. So give me the kickboxer and Patira. I think he has more ways to win against Nikolai Negumereanu, who just seems to be like everybody's favorite dog play now, to the point where it's basically a pick'em. So I'm hoping to maybe get involved on the Patira side. A lot of people kind of are just writing him off as a fraud with a padded record, but I think he could actually have more advantages than Nikolai in this matchup. So I'm hoping to get a pick'em price tag. We'll see by the end of the week. But yeah, the pick is Patira. Next fight up, we have Jocelyn Edwards as a small favorite at -125 with Ji-Yeon Kim on the comeback at +105. And this one, I think, is pretty easy to break down because I'm expecting a competitive kickboxing match. Neither of these women really look to proactively grapple. I know Edwards, she's pretty decent with the armbar, but that's typically after she's being taken down. I don't expect either of them to look for takedowns here, so I'm expecting to see a kickboxing match, and one where both fighters throw in volume, both will land in volume, but I think it's going to be mainly the punches of Kim versus the kicks of Edwards. So I really think this one is going to come down to whoever the judges are favoring at that moment. I don't think there's going to be huge round swinging moments in this fight, so it's just going to be like both of them landing a lot of volume. We'll see who the judges pick, so that just doesn't really give me a good taste in my mouth if I'm looking to get involved with backing somebody. But I do think there's probably a little bit of value on the underdog. At least you can make a case for Kim. She's fought tougher competition. Yes, she's on a 3-fight losing streak, but she looked pretty good in some of those fights. I think she could put a little more volume on Edwards, and let's be honest, if she's going to be landing decent damage punches to Edwards as opposed to, you know, little leg kicks and stuff on the Edwards side, maybe that could play more into the judges' favor. So I'll say Kim, you know, maybe she has the slight striking advantage, but this is going to be a close one, and I don't think either of them really have a ceiling for DraftKings. The only way that this fight, the only way that the winner is going to score well on DraftKings is if they just both go rabies from the very beginning and both throw like 300 plus strikes each, and it just racks up significant strikes. That's literally the only way that this fight scores well. And yes, it could happen based on their skill set, but it's also not something that I'm going to bank on. So it's going to be one that I'm mostly avoiding this week on DraftKings. Next fight up, we have Michael Morales coming in as the biggest favorite on the card at -690 favorite against Adam Fugit, who's on the comeback at +490. And Michael Morales is a former Dana White Contender Series guy. He fought on Contender Series last season. I actually picked against him in that fight, and he really impressed me. You know, coming into that fight, he just really hadn't been tested, hadn't fought really anybody. The level of competition was very poor. I kind of wrote him off to a sense because the guy he was fighting I thought was actually pretty decent, and he just like manhandled this dude, beat him in the striking, beat him in the wrestling, which was where a lot of people thought that the other guy would have an advantage there. He does come from a little bit of a wrestling background as well, and that might be put to the test here against Adam Fugit, who Fugit, honestly, like when I saw the line, I was expecting Fugit to be some regional bum that was coming in here to get knocked out on short notice. But this guy does actually have a decent skill set. He comes from a Muay Thai background. I believe he's a 5-time Muay Thai striking champion. He's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think. I know he grappled against Nick Maximov in Submission Underground as a brown belt a couple of years ago. I don't know if he got promoted to black belt yet or not, but either way, he's an experienced grappler. He definitely knows what he's doing on the mat. He has a little bit of a wrestling background as well. He wrestled in high school. I think he wrestled in college as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting here because Morales, where he's done most of his damage, is with his hands. He is a good boxer. He does have power. Most of his wins have come by knockout. But I also don't think that this guy's like just generally going to be killing people, one-hitter quitter type of power across the UFC. Like, yes, he was able to do that in his debut against Trevin Giles, but I'm not sure that that's something that we could expect every fight moving forward. And I'm actually going to look to play an over here, an over 1.5. I think if Fugit can grind on him, stay safe in the striking, maybe mix in the takedowns a little bit, this one could go over. The problem with Fugit is he throws a lot of kicks. He's very long. He throws a lot of kicks, but he kind of paints a picture on them. He is open to being countered. We saw that against Kalen Hill on the regional scene. He did get knocked out in that fight, and that's the concern here is Morales does have speed. He does have power to put him out, but outside of that, I just think this fight is going to play out a lot more closely than this -700 suggests. I mean, that's kind of a wild line. We're being sold that this is like a bulletproof fighter, and at this stage in his career, I'm just not convinced, especially when it's a low-level opponent, but a quality low-level opponent who's well-rounded everywhere the fight goes. So I'm going to say the most likely outcome is Morales does find the chin and knock Fugit out here on short notice, but I'm willing to take that risk and take on more of the Fugit side on DraftKings, because at 9,500, Morales is going to be like almost a complete fade for me. We know, historically speaking, 9,500 fighters don't tend to reach the optimal lineup. And then on top of that, I just think there's better targets right below him. You know, in the other 9K range, you have Amanda Nunes, Magomed Ankalaev's $100 cheaper. You have Drew Dober at 9K. And even in that upper 8K range with Brandon Moreno, Alexander Pantoja, like those are guys that I would rather just build around than paying all the way up to Michael Morales. So give me the underdog on DraftKings. Cheapest guy on the card, lets you build in a lot of those high price favorites that we want to stack in this week. So yeah, so like I said, I mean, Morales by knockout is probably what happens, but I'm willing to embrace the uncertainty and be overexposed and overweight to the Fugit side on DraftKings. And next fight up is Drakkar Klose, a -205 favorite. Rafa Garcia on the comeback at +175. And I like the Klose side in this fight. I'm not going to bet him at -205. I think it's about accurate. But I do think he's the rightful favorite because Rafa Garcia, yes, he's got an okay skill set, but a lot of what he tries to do in these fights, Drakkar Klose is just better at, and he's just overall just the bigger guy, the stronger guy. I just don't think Rafa Garcia is going to be able to land multiple takedowns here, to be able to out-volume Klose on the feet. Klose is coming off that Brandon Jenkins beatdown where he looked probably the best that he ever has. I know there was a bunch of question marks coming off the knockout loss to Beneil Dariush, and then obviously the face-off with Jeremy Stephens where he got whiplash, and it kind of held him out for a while. So there was questions coming into that fight. I think he answered all those questions, and yes, Brandon Jenkins isn't much of a test, but man, he really looked good in that fight. And I think if we see that version of Drakkar Klose here, he probably breezes right through Rafa Garcia here. So give me Drakkar Klose, probably Drakkar Klose by decision, because Rafa Garcia is a tough guy to get out of there. But I just think it's going to be one where Rafa's not like completely dead in the water. Like he's somewhat competitive, but I think at the end of every round, it's going to be clear that Drakkar Klose wins those rounds. So give me Drakkar Klose by decision. But overall, it's just not a fight that I'm going to looking to be heavy on for DraftKings. Next fight up, we have Don'Tale Mayes coming in as a -180 favorite. Now, the comeback on the short notice newcomer in Hamde Abdelwahab is +155. And this is my first bet of the week. I bet him on Sunday. I believe that was Don'Tale Mayes at -136. I knew that line was going to move. I actually wanted to hit it sooner than that, but I got around to it Sunday at -136 to win a unit and a half. And obviously, you can see the line's been slammed all week. And I think part of that is just because people are looking into the matchup and they realize that this Abdelwahab guy might just be a complete fraud. And I say that because he's just 5-0, so we know he's very inexperienced in terms of MMA. He comes from a wrestling background, and that's the one positive thing I'll say about him is his wrestling is not bad. Like, he does have some good double legs, some powerful slams, and immediately he can pass guard, get into side dominant positions like that. But outside of, a couple good takedowns, like this guy's like the budget version of Deron Winn at the heavyweight division. He's going to be much smaller than Don'Tale Mayes here. Don'Tale Mayes is going to have an 8-inch reach advantage. He's going to be like 4 or 5 inches taller. He's just going to be a lot bigger, a lot more physically strong. And it doesn't mean that Abdelwahab won't be able to have that wrestling success, but I think he's going to struggle. Maybe he gets Mayes down once or twice, but I think he's going to struggle to hold him down. And Mayes is just so powerful that I don't even know if he'll be able to get him down to begin with. And Mayes is a guy who we know his wrestling's been improving. He showed that off against Josh Parisian in his last fight, landed multiple takedowns, grinded on him, got the 3rd round stoppage there. So I just think we have Don'Tale Mayes who's going to have an overall size and power advantage on the feet, much better striker. I mean, Abdelwahab, his striking is basically just, these winging, powerful shots, completely no regard for defense. I think he could get clipped on the feet. And I mentioned the inexperience. He's 5-0. He was fighting in Jorge Masvidal's promotion in Florida, and he actually fought this dude in bare knuckle boxing in his professional MMA debut. The guy had never fought before. He's like this 40-year-old dude, fat and out of shape. His nickname's Stretch. I forget his real name, but I mean, that's who he fought in bare knuckle boxing as his debut. And then 4 fights later, they're like, you know what? We got to see the rematch. Get him back in here. Where's Stretch? Somebody call Stretch. We need to get Hamdi a 1st round win again. So then they fight again, actually in June. and Hamdi obviously takes care of business once again, gets him out of there in the first round. So I just think this guy has a completely padded record. Yes, I mentioned the Egyptian Olympic wrestling background. That's all great, but I just think this is too much too soon. This guy should probably be, fighting or really even trying to get on Contender Series. I don't even know if he deserves that yet. And now he's getting Don'Tale Mayes, a guy that I think we've been seeing improvements. Yes, he's struggled at times in the UFC, but that was against Ciryl Gane, who's a top 3 guy in the division, and Rodrigo Nascimento, who's not quite at that level, but does have a decent ground game. I'm just not sure that Abdel Wahhab's going to be able to take advantage of those holes in Mayes' game. So give me Mayes by knockout. Like I said, it was my first bet of the week at -136. I'd probably even play him all the way up to -200. I just don't think that Abdel Wahhab could really be competitive outside of getting lucky and landing something big in round 1. And next fight up, we have Drew Dober, -190 favorite. The comeback on Rafael Alves is +160. And this one is an absolute banger. They really do a good job of matching Drew Dober up with fights that are just automatically going to be fun. Because yes, he has a fun fighting style himself, but they've been matching him up against other guys that have an awesome fighting style as well. Most recently, the Brad Riddell fight, absolute banger. The Terrence McKinney fight was one of the most exciting fights that I think I've ever seen. Just an absolute roller coaster. McKinney comes out hot and heavy, basically stumbles and wobbles Drew multiple times. Looks like he's going to get him out of there multiple times. Dober overcomes the adversity. I have no idea how, and then just completely takes over and finishes Terrence McKinney. So every fight that this dude is in is an absolute banger. It's complete fireworks, and I'm expecting the same here against Rafael Alves, who's very similar to McKinney in the sense that he comes out like shot out of a cannon, to not quite to the degree of Terrence McKinney, but he's very explosive, very athletic. He has some really powerful kicks, clear knockout power on the feet, but also his grappling, and that's what could be an advantage for him here, is he has a really tight guillotine choke. We've seen Drew Dober submitted 4 times in his career. His defensive grappling has really always been his issue. So I expect him to have the striking advantage here. I expect him to be the much better boxer of the two. But when Alves throws, he throws with bad intentions. And the one concern I have with Dober in the stand-up is that, yes, he's made a career of being able to fight through a lot of adversity and go to war with guys until he finds that big left hand. But I kind of think that durability is starting to come into question. Not that I think he can't take a punch now or anything like that, but I do think it's only a matter of time until we see him just get knocked out clean one of these times. And I say that because, yes, the Brad Riddell fight, he went to war. He was wobbled multiple times in that fight. The Terrence McKinney fight, absolute war. And even going back throughout his career, he's been in those style of fights. We see it time and time again. That chin cannot just be metal throughout his entire career. At some point, it's going to crack. I'm not saying that happens here. I'm still picking Drew Dober to win this fight, but I'm just saying against a guy like Alves, who is extremely explosive, if he connects clean, I wouldn't completely put it past him of being able to get the knockout finish. But really, it's the grappling that I'm worried about here. I want Dober to stay at range where he should have the boxing success, the striking advantage with the Muay Thai striking background. But if Alves is able to force those grappling exchanges, that's where Dober might be put in some trouble here. So the pick is Dober by knockout, but in terms of DraftKings, I think it's a great fight to target. I'm going to have exposure to both sides. I'm really just looking to get overweight to this fight as a whole because I think the winner scores well. And next fight up, we have Matthew Semelsberger, a -155 favorite. The comeback on Alex Morono is +135. And Semelsberger is coming off the fight against my guy, AJ Fletcher. You guys know, if you listen to my stuff, I was on AJ Fletcher pretty big there. I believe a 3-unit play as a big underdog there. The first round, we were feeling great. It was awesome, feeling good. And then obviously you could see the cardio was starting to wane on both sides, but definitely more on the Fletcher side. And that's really what ended up being the difference. I think it was 1-1 going into the third, and it was pretty competitive third round until halfway through or whatever. Semelsberger ends up landing on top, kind of finishes the fight there. Looks good for the judges, gets a 29-28 decision. All good for him. But I don't think Semelsberger is a guy that I want to be paying a -155 price tag really over almost nobody in this division. He's not complete bottom of the barrel, but I really don't rate his skill set very highly. On the regional scene, he was more of a knockout, early finish guy. The power just doesn't seem to translate at the UFC level. And then he comes from some type of wrestling background. but he hasn't really proactively wrestled a ton. He landed, I think, 1 or 2 takedowns against Carlton Manas, which doesn't really say much. And then the one takedown against AJ Fletcher came when he was very tired. So he's not even really looking to wrestle all that much. His striking's not all that great. It's not bad. He's got a decent jab, a little bit of pop in his punches, but I just don't think he's a guy that can clearly win rounds against quality level of competition. And this seems to be a step up against Alex Morono, who I think is going to throw more volume on the feet. He's got a good jab as well. He's going to mix in the leg kicks. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so if it does go to the mat, I think Morono has more submission grappling skills. So I think there's value on Morono at plus 135. I don't know if I'm going to bet him myself, because I do think this fight probably plays out pretty competitively, and Semelsberger has burned me once or twice in the past, so I don't know if I'll get there, but I definitely... if gun to my head, I'm going to choose the Moreno side. On DraftKings, I just think there's better fights up and down the card. It's a 13-fight slate. A lot of them are favored to end inside the distance, and I just don't think this is really going to be one of those fights. Next fight up, we have, I believe, the second biggest favorite on the card in Magomed Ankalaev, minus 520 favorite. The comeback on Anthony Lionheart Smith is plus 410. And I think you have to like the Ankalaev side. Certainly not going to pay that price on him. Maybe throw him in a parlay. I think that's fine, because I do think he wins this fight here. Anthony Smith, just not a guy that you can count on to consistently win rounds. He's really finish or bust. And yes, he is a quality finisher. He's actually on a 3-fight win streak. All 3 of them were first round finishes. So credit to Lionheart, man. He's stuck around for a long time. He's fought the best of the best. But I don't see him knocking out Ankalaev here. And I don't see him submitting Ankalaev here. Ankalaev has 1 career loss. It was that Hail Mary submission against Paul Craig back in 2018 that came at the very last second. Outside of that, the guys looked not completely flawless, but certainly one of the best lightweights in the division. And a lot of people have him pegged as a future champ. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets there myself. Yes, at times he doesn't have the best fight IQ, but I think it's just hard for me to get to Anthony Smith winning this fight. How does he win this fight? I think Ankalaev is a better striker at range. I think he's much more sound defensively. I think Smith would have to basically land a lucky punch, and I just don't really see that happening. And then I think Ankalaev could land takedowns at will. Anthony Smith does not defend takedowns will. You could control him on the mat. He's been controlled multiple times against, big, strong wrestlers like Ankalaev. So I just think Ankalaev has multiple paths to victory here. I know it wasn't the greatest performance, the main event win over Thiago Santos. A lot of people wanted him to wrestle more in that fight, but I just think no matter what he does here, even with a bad game plan, I still think he probably wins. So Ankalaev by decision is the official pick. As for DraftKings at 9,400, I'm not going to completely fade him, but I do think that, those 2 highest priced fighters, Morales and Ankalaev, I'm probably not going to have many builds with them in it at all. Maybe one of them in some of them, definitely probably none with both of them, because I just don't think the ceiling is really there at that price. And again, I think there's better fighters to target just below them in that price range. Next fight up, we have a fun one in the flyweight division. We have Alexander Pantoja, minus 180 favorite. The comeback on Alex Perez is plus 155. And I've always been a Pantoja fan. He's been at the top of this division for years now. Certainly a top 3 guy in the division. And Alex Perez is a very skilled fighter himself. I would say he's probably top 5 in the division. The problem is he's just not as active, right? The last time we saw him was back in 2020 when he got submitted in the first round against Deiveson Figueiredo. He's obviously had a couple fights fall through since then. The Matt Schnell fight multiple times. I think he had 1 or 2 other fights get canceled as well. He had an injury. The weight cut's always an issue for him, and that's going to be something to keep an eye on this weekend, is see how the weight cut is for Alex Perez. That's something that he notoriously struggles with. But even if it's a good weight cut for him, I'm just not sure that he's going to have what it takes to beat Alexander Pantoja. Pantoja, I think on the feet, he keeps a high pace. He's got good boxing. Perez is going to look to mix in the leg kicks, and he could have some success doing that. But I think ultimately this fight is going to hit the mat, and that's where I favor Alexander Pantoja. Alex Perez, yes, he comes from that collegiate wrestling background. His wrestling is strong, but what he constantly does is leaves his neck out there to be submitted. This guy's been submitted multiple times, not just the last time. I believe he's been submitted by guillotine specifically 3 times in his career. And I just think if you roll around and give Pantoja enough chances, this dude's going to find your back. He's going to choke you out. Maybe it's a guillotine, but I really think if he rolls around with him, he's going to take his back and submit Alex Perez here. So give me Alexander Pantoja by submission. That's the official pick. But I think this one's just flyweight in general is just a high pace nature. I think it's going to lead to good DraftKings scoring regardless of who wins. So I'm definitely going to have exposure to both sides here. Perez obviously a lot cheaper, has the wrestling, the multi takedown upside if he does win. But ultimately, I think it's going to be Pantoja. So give me Pantoja by submission. And up next, we have Sergey Pavlovich, a small favorite now at -140. The comeback on Derrick, the Black Beast Lewis, is +120. And this one is pretty easy to me. I think it's pretty straightforward. Basically, you have two very powerful strikers. Pavlovich, basically, almost all of his wins have come by knockout, the majority of which have come inside the first round. All of his UFC wins have been first round knockout victories. And Derrick Lewis, he owns the most knockouts in UFC history. So you're not going to say he doesn't have knockout power. So these guys, I think, are probably just going to stand and trade. Obviously, the volume is going to favor Sergey Pavlovich. I think the durability is going to favor him as well. It doesn't mean he can't get knocked out, but Derrick Lewis, we've seen time and time again, he's very low volume on the feet. He's looking for that one big shot, and if he's unable to land that, he's probably dropping rounds, or even worse, getting stung himself. He's been knocked out 6 times in his career. Obviously, most recently came against Tai Tuivasa in what was an exciting back and forth fight. But I just got to side with the younger guy who I think is more durable, who probably wants it more at this stage in his career. So it's a high variance fight. Either guy can win by knockout, but I like the Pavlovich side. I'm going to be more exposed to Pavlovich on DraftKings. Now we have the 2 title fights left, but before we get to those guys, do me a favor, please like this video and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel. It takes 2 seconds and it doesn't take much from you guys. I definitely appreciate the support. So please subscribe to my channel if you don't already. Throw me a like, drop a comment. Any support is greatly appreciated. I truly mean that. Thank you, and let's get to the title fights. And the first of those title fights is going to be Brandon Moreno, a -210 favorite, with Kai Kara France on the comeback at +180. And this is going to be an interim title in the flyweight division. Brandon Moreno has basically only fought Deiveson Figueiredo for the last couple of years. And I don't think anybody's really complaining about that because they put on excellent fights every single time. He's coming off the trilogy against Figueiredo last time, where ultimately he didn't get the decision, but I thought he looked pretty good in that fight. I expect him to be the rightful favorite in this matchup. Yes, I think the striking could be competitive here, but I just think the ground game is clear upside in Brandon Moreno. And against Kai Kara France, who, yes, he's one of the better power punchers in the division. He's on a 3-fight win streak, 2 of which came by knockout. So it's not to say he doesn't have the punching power, but Brandon Moreno, super durable. Figueiredo's had a hard time putting him away. I don't think Kai Kara France could do it. But outside of that, I really don't see how Kai Kara France wins this fight. He's going to be competitive in the striking, but I just don't think Moreno, if the striking is super competitive, how does Moreno not go for takedowns here? And yes, Kai Kara France has had solid takedown defense. I believe he defends at 86% in the UFC. But we've also seen once you get him down, you can control this guy, or he's going to panic scramble back to his feet. And it's in those panic scrambles where Brandon Moreno, I think, is going to have a clear advantage to be able to take the back. Kai Kara France, when he gets up, gives up his back almost every time. He could take the neck, choke him out. We've seen him submitted multiple times in his career as well. So I just think all the grappling upside, the wrestling upside is on the Brandon Moreno side. And even in the striking, Moreno's boxing has come a long way. He's got those powerful kicks as well. So it's like, if I think the striking is pretty even overall, and then the guy who has all the grappling upside, who I expect to implement that style game plan, and he has 5 rounds to work with, I'm going to side with Brandon Moreno here as the rightful favorite. I think he gets the job done. Brandon Moreno by decision is the official pick. Which brings us to our main event. We have Amanda Nunes, a -275 favorite, Juliana Pena on the comeback at +230. And this is a rematch in the fight that took place last year where, honestly, go back and watch the fight. Amanda Nunes was dominating that first round. It wasn't even competitive. It looked like when Amanda Lemos fought Liviana Souza. It wasn't even like Souza should have been in the cage with her. That's how I felt watching round 1. That's how I felt about it live. It was like, oh, another Amanda Nunes fight. She's going to dominate her. And then that's how I felt about it rewatching as well. Nunes is a much better striker. She's much more powerful. And then she has all the wrestling and grappling upside. She completely dominated her on the mat. and cruised in that first round. The problem is her cardio has always been a concern. And that came to light in this fight because in round 2, she didn't go back to the takedowns for whatever reason. Juliana Pena started, getting inside, making it a dirty boxing match. She had a little bit of success with her jab. Then she started landing hooks as Nunes got tired. She definitely got lazy defensively, but also it was funny because it's like you could tell she was getting tired. And while she was getting tired, it just made her throw more aggressively with power, even though they weren't landing, which obviously is going to gas you out even faster. So it's like, even though she was starting to fade already, she made it worse on herself by fighting just a really stupid game plan. Because honestly, once she started to struggle at range and get a little bit tired, she should have just went right back to the takedowns. The takedowns, she did not get a ton of resistance in the first round. And I think she has clear grappling upside as long as she's not completely tired. And that's what we saw in round 2, where she just completely gassed out to the point where Pena just teed off on her for the most part. And even after teeing off, it was still like Pena's face was way worse because she took the bulk of the power. Like, she wasn't even landing with a ton of power against Nunes. Yeah, I guess she wobbled her, but I think it was more due to the exhaustion. And we saw that when, she went and, went for the judo throw and basically took the back. It looked like she wasn't even under the chin for the choke, like instant tap out for Amanda. She just did not want to be in there. You could tell it was just like, she tried her best to get the finish, and then once it didn't materialize and she went for a little bit of adversity, she was like, yeah, this ain't even worth it. I want to go home. That's what it looked like to me and a lot of people watching it, just because of how quick the tap came. It didn't look like it was under the chin. It just seemed like she had given up at that point. And it's tough to back somebody that always kind of has that in the realm of possibility, especially at a favorite price tag of -270. But what I keep going back to is she's just more skilled everywhere than Juliana Pena. She's a much better striker, much better wrestler, and a much better grappler. It's literally just the cardio that you have to be concerned about. And I think now she's probably got that shored up, at least to a degree of where she can come in here and get the belt back. We've seen in the past her be able to go 25 minutes and wrestle through those 25 minutes. And that's what I would expect to see here. Just a better overall game plan from Amanda Nunes here, who is the better fighter in my opinion. So give me Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes by knockout is the official pick. But honestly, like, a really wrestle-heavy decision wouldn't be the most surprising thing here if she comes in with that type of game plan. But either way, I think she's one of the best plays on DraftKings in the upper 9K range. I just think she's got a high floor, a high ceiling, and I just don't think that Pena is going to be able to replicate what happened the last time these two fought. And as always, guys, you could check out my website, fightnumbers.com, where I'm going to have DraftKings player rankings broken down by salary tier. I'm going to have ownership projections as well, a line movement page, fantasy points per minute. It's all completely free. Fightnumbers.com. Check it out. And do me a favor, like this video, drop a comment. Let me know if you think I'm crazy for thinking Amanda Nunes is not going to gas out and regain the belt here. As always, guys, I appreciate you joining. Thanks for watching. Best of luck, and we'll see you next time.